With injury updates and more, this is Wrestling Rambles. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report. Before we move on, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Rambles with notifications on, and don't forget to like the video. Reviewing the results for the Wrestling Observer Newsletter's Booker of the Year Award, No DQ wrote, here are the voting results for 2023. Paul Levesque with 360 votes, Tony Khan with 146, Juan Manuel Mar 104, Shuji Ishikawa with 74, Rossy Ogawa 68, Gato 45, Shawn Michaels 28, Andy Guidlin 19, and Scott D'Amore with 16. Replying to those that refer to him as a comedy wrestler, Orange Cassidy told The Athletic, I don't really like the term comedy wrestler because I feel that professional wrestling is an art. This is the art I create, and art to me should generate emotions out of people. Those emotions could be laughter, they could also be joy, it could also be sadness, it could be regret, it could be depression. If I was just a comedic wrestler, would people really care? Would they be invested? You can watch a movie that's just laughs for 90 minutes, but there's always a part that makes you really care. That's why I'm very grateful for AEW, because I can flex those different muscles, evoke those different emotions that I wouldn't be able to if I was somewhere else. I'd be a one-note joke. People would get tired of it after 6 months and I'd be done. You have to be a professional wrestler first and foremost to evoke any type of emotion. Explaining his decision to join Raw over SmackDown, Andrade told La Previa de WWE, well, there were many things. One of them was because there are a lot of Mexicans and Latinos on the SmackDown roster, which I respect and is great, and there are many Latinos on the Raw roster if you think about it. Many people asked me why I didn't come with Garza, Humberto, or Zelina Vega. They're amazing superstars, they're from Mexico, they're great, and they have a history. But I've already faced Garza, I've already faced Humberto, I've already faced Rey Mysterio, and I was with Zelina for a while. I've faced Carlito. I've seen enough of Mexico against Mexico. There are hardly any Latinos and Mexicans on Raw. That was a part of my decision. That was the most important thing. Touching on his initial world title victory in WWE, Randy Orton noted in an A&E biography, this was the culmination of all this hard work. I knew my father and my grandfather would be watching me, proud of me. Stephanie McMahon gave me her cell phone. She was like, call your dad, call your grandpa, talk to them. And I'm so glad that she did. My grandpa, he was only around for a few years after, so just hearing his voice, hearing how proud he was of me, that's a conversation I will never forget. Same with my father. I called him next. I'd never heard my old man get choked up. Like, he's old school to the bone, but he was choked up on the phone that night, so it was a special night. It's hard to describe the feeling of the responsibility, the amount of awesomeness that comes with holding that belt. I had the title, but I didn't have the maturity. I definitely was not ready. I'm really just sitting on top of the world. I'm making a lot of money for someone my age, and I'm living the dream, and I am a cocky SOB. Talking about the initial status of Raquel Rodriguez for Elimination Chamber after her MCAS flare-up, it was said on Wrestling Observer Radio that Raquel Rodriguez ended up doing the show, although it was kind of questionable there for a while. It was touch and go. One of the things I mentioned yesterday with Garrett was things that could happen that were different, but it flared up. They went through that whole match. They basically did a practice match in Australia, and she missed that, but she was able to do the match today. And that's so good for her. She got to do it, but yeah, she had a flare-up, I think, on the flight over. It was on the flight over, and apparently if something were essentially her face, it's like everything. It's like a horrible allergic reaction, although it's not, and it swells up and turns. She said the color of her satin pillow or pink satin pillowcase, and she thanked the amazing makeup team. She thanked the local massage place that apparently worked with her 3 times to help her feel her best, but she made it to the chamber. So that one was hit or miss, but she did end up making it for that. Going over her time as the leader of the Toxic Attraction stable on NXT, former WWE star Mandy Rose told Threads with Mackenzie Mitchell, "Even when Sonya Deville and I tag teamed, we're not the same person. We're both very different, especially Sonya and I. And even with these girls, I don't know them that well, but I didn't want to come in and make them look more like me. Like, that was not the vibe. That was not the intention from the get-go. Actually, if anything, it would be me getting a little of the edginess from them. We all created our own little look, but it meshed so well together without being like, oh, they're so matchy-matchy." Recalling his pro wrestling career prior to WWE, Kevin Owens noted on Wrestle Radio Australia, "I mean, this is a lot closer to myself than I am, the Ring of Honor stuff. A lot of it was about shocking people and trying to get my name out there, and for better or for worse, there's a lot of things I did back then that I would not do today. You know what I mean? So I'm glad that I've managed to get to where I wanted to get to, and the Ring of Honor years are great years for me, but they're not necessarily years I even look back on. I don't really watch that stuff back. If I did, I'd probably cringe at a lot of stuff I did. Licking people's blood and just a lot of crazy things in the ring that I probably shouldn't have been doing. But it all paid off ultimately. I am where I wanted to go." When it comes to live attendance numbers for AEW and WWE, Ringside News wrote, "WrestleTix compiled the attendance figures for last week's WWE and AEW TV shows. Notably, Friday Night Smackdown recorded the highest ticket sales, whereas AEW Collision had the lowest attendance. Monday Night Raw on February 19th took place at the Honda Center in Anaheim, California, where they sold 12,293 tickets. The February 21st AEW Dynamite was held at the BOK Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and secured an audience of 3,274. There was no Friday Night Smackdown last week, as the episode was taped in advance for Elimination Chamber. The February 24th edition of AEW Collision took place at the Great Southern Bank Arena in Springfield, Missouri, where they sold 2,241 tickets for last week's show, making it the biggest loser." Speaking about former WWE writer Jennifer Pepperman being a part of AEW now, Matt Hardy mentioned on his Extreme Life podcast, "I worked with her when I went back to WWE in 2017. I was there from 2017 through 2020, got along good with her, interacted with her some. I don't know her extremely well, but I do know her. I think it's very interesting. I think it's a positive thing that Tony Khan is bringing someone that has been in the WWE format and the WWE writing room and the WWE structuring room to bring them and give insight on AEW. I think it's a positive." Touching on how his Alpha Academy run came together in WWE, Akira Tozawa said this to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful. "Backstage, I was doing the Tozawa shuffle. That was random. I was just being Tozawa, natural Tozawa. They loved it. A couple of weeks ago, I realized I ripped the shirt and people cheer loudly." Taking a shot at CM Punk being injured, Seth Rollins told Wrestle Radio Australia, "I mean, I don't want to say I told you so, but me and a lot of other people told you so. What's the line? Fragile mind, fragile body, fragile ego." I think somebody that I know said something like that about him, and it rings true. So look, here's the deal, and I told him this in the ring. If you want to find your way to me in the World Heavyweight Championship, you're going to have to work for it. The deal is, he's going to have to work a little harder now. Asked about a potential match against The Rock, Seth Rollins said this to Inside the Ropes. "Look, he's a specimen. He's a specimen, but he hasn't had a match in a decade. John Cena, 2 times at WrestleMania. Had a couple of stuff, tag matches, some appearances here and there. Look, I'm on a different level right now. I'm in my prime. I'm operating at a level so high above any level he's ever operated at. He cannot lace my boots in the best years of his career, let alone right now." With Finn Balor looking to have hurt his hand at the Elimination Chamber show, Brian Alvarez said this about it on Wrestling Observer Radio. And then we had Finn Balor, who at the end of the match holds up his hand and his thumb is bleeding like crazy. And man, he sold that thing big. And we weren't sure if he had broken his thumb or cut it open or whatever. But apparently, whatever it was, he's all right. Revealing a potential injury he may have suffered during the Elimination Chamber event, Drew McIntyre told Byron Saxton, "I can barely hear the words after getting hit in the ear so hard. It's fine. I said I would do whatever it takes, not just for me, but for everybody else. And every superplex, every dive off the cage, every powerbomb in the back of my neck was worth it. I said I'd go through any obstacle. Push Cody Rhodes to finish his story. That's what the fans wanted. Push Seth Rollins to stop being selfish. Some people are like, it's just so you can get Seth at WrestleMania. Yeah, I just had to beat AJ Styles, and I just had to put myself through hell while jet lagged. While this eardrum appears to be burst, worth it. I did it for each and every one of you. We're so close, so close. WrestleMania. We finish our own story, and I finally get my moment." So WWE just had their big Elimination Chamber event in Perth, Australia, and what a night it was. A gigantic crowd, a raucous crowd at that. So excited to see everybody. And from start to finish, a solid show. And the energy of the crowd really put this over the top, made it next level. This was a show where if you go through the rundown of it, it seems pretty predictable, right? You had the Kabuki Warriors take on LeRae and Hartwell, even though Hartwell is Australian. You should have known they're not going to win the titles off the Kabuki Warriors. They just got them. They're in a bigger storyline. I don't even know what LeRae and Hartwell are doing right now. The women's chamber match started the main card, and you had Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, Liv Morgan, Naomi, Raquel Rodriguez, and Tiffany Stratton. And the winner will face Rhea Ripley for the women's world title at WrestleMania. And if you're looking at that, of course you're going to need a babyface to take on the heel champion Rhea Ripley, so you can eliminate Tiffany Stratton from that equation. And then oddly enough, everyone else in this match is a babyface. So this was a bit of an odd setup going into it, but you had to think with the segment that Lynch and Ripley had at the WrestleMania kickoff event that it was going to be Becky Lynch. Easily predictable. And then you had Judgment Day, Finn Balor, Damian Priest taking on Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate. You could have expected an incredible match, but why would you think the Judgment Day would lose the undisputed tag belts? Then you had the men's chamber match. Once again, easy to pick a winner here. And you have the World Heavyweight Champion Seth Rollins, who the winner would face at WrestleMania. Rollins is right now a babyface, so you can take out Lashley, Kevin Owens, LA Knight, and Randy Orton as winners. Leaves you with Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre. And given the segments that McIntyre has been having with Rollins, the history they share, how hot McIntyre is right now, he's got a ton of momentum. This is arguably the greatest run he has been on, and he's not even a champion right now. It's incredible what he's done. McIntyre should have been an easy choice. And then the main event, I get it's Rhea Ripley's home country, got a huge ovation. It just seems very odd that the Elimination Chamber premium live event with now 2 chamber matches, neither are the main event. But you had Ripley taking on Nia Jax, and there's no way you would have thought Ripley was going to lose the women's world title. That would have been awful. Can you imagine the crowd reaction? They might have just gone silent if Jax beat her. But all in all, a good card. The one thing you couldn't have predicted was what was going to happen on the Grayson Waller effect. Oddly enough, this is what I was most excited about, was to hear specifically what Cody Rhodes had to say. To a lesser extent, a much lesser extent, Seth Rollins had to say in regards to this situation with The Rock, Roman Reigns, the Bloodline, etc. So the Grayson Waller effect is kicking off. Austin Theory is in the ring, who has now been relegated to Grayson Waller's lackey, and he's getting some heat out there. Introduces Grayson, gets a decent pop. He's being cheered by the fans. I don't recall him saying anything negative about Australia to the Australian fans in particular. He did insult his guests in Rollins and Rhodes. Nonetheless, we see Seth Rollins come out. He does his dancing and prancing and airplane movement or whatever, dresses like a complete buffoon. I am embarrassed to watch Seth Rollins. I cringe every time I see Seth Rollins. It is so hard to get through any segment that he is involved in when he is not serious and doing the cackling, his dumb laugh, the dumb movements. I just hate all of it. I don't like it. I can't stand it. And it makes it unwatchable. As soon as I hear a cackle, I instantly want to get out of whatever I'm watching. I want to turn it off. I want to walk away. I need to take a shower. I feel dirty. I feel filthy. Anyways, Cody Rhodes comes out. They are singing his song. Huge ovation. And then they're sat down. And Austin Theory is like leaning against the rope. He puts one foot on the bottom rope. Then he takes it off. And he doesn't know what to do. It just looks so weird that he doesn't have a chair. He's just standing the whole time. Poor Theory. How the mighty have fallen. The one man that has taken a toll on screen since the departure from WWE of Vince McMahon. It's the only person I can think of that has just fallen off. Anyway, so they get Rhodes and Rollins out there. Oh, and one other thing. The funniest moment of this whole segment was they panned to the crowd for Rollins' music, and there is a Seth is a B+ player sign. A nice callback to the Authority telling Daniel Bryan he's a B+ player. Very funny sign. Got a good laugh out of me from that one. Anyway, so Rollins says he's got an announcement, got a scoop for Grayson Waller. He's days away from being cleared to compete. Good for him. I don't wish ill on Seth Rollins. I just wish he would be more serious and get rid of the weird clothes. Does he buy these? He has to be renting these out, right? Dresses like he's at the Met Gala. Anyway, so hypes up the men's chamber match. Who the winner will face him at WrestleMania. Says they don't stand a chance. And then they move on to Cody Rhodes. And Grayson Waller asks him, don't you think it was selfish of you to allow The Rock to face Roman Reigns and then pull the rug out from underneath that and take away the biggest main event or the biggest match, however he worded it, from the fans? He mentions that he's a fan of The Rock, gets a little bit of booze for that. Says if he were here, he'd mention something about Rudy Poopy, calling him a candy something, mentioned pie, and then was like, what do they call my fans? Grayson Waller says, Cody Crybabies, and then Cody asks, are there any Cody Crybabies here tonight? They cut to a shot of the crowd, and you can see Die Rocky Die signs. And then Cody says, one thing I'm sure The Rock would not want to talk about is the conversation we had that led us to this point. Oh my goodness. My ears perked up. I leaned a little closer to the screen. I'm thinking to myself, good grief, it's here. Finally, we're going to get a kernel, a little nugget, something to give me an explanation as to why Cody Rhodes gave up his WrestleMania spot in the first place, told Roman as well as the fans, I'm not going to face you at WrestleMania, and then goes back on his word. And all he said that night was, we had a great conversation. A great conversation, a quote-unquote great conversation with The Rock led to him giving up his WrestleMania main event against Roman Reigns. And he says, I don't think The Rock would want to talk about that. And then Grayson Waller interrupts, and we never hear anything more about that. Now, at the very least, there is some solace to be taken from this mention of the great conversation, since the plans have obviously changed. They were definitely going to do Rock Roman, and Rock decided to step back for Cody, and that's why they've jumbled this thing to a point where they're going to have to try and salvage it and make it make sense. So Cody at least bringing it up is an indication, seemingly, that they will have some kind of explanation, whether it be from Rock and or Cody, about that great conversation they had prior to Cody giving up his spot for The Rock against Roman. It seems as though we will get some answers there, and thank goodness, because that is the biggest plot hole in this whole arc, and it's driving me up a freaking wall. So Grayson Waller cuts him off. We're going to have to keep waiting for that one, which if you need more time to come up with something logical, that is fine. Take your time. I will be waiting here with bated breath until you give us an answer to try to make sense of this nonsense. We skip ahead a little bit, and Cody says, I've got an announcement to make. Rock, you slapped me, and I'm going to face Roman Reigns in the main event of WrestleMania, but until then, he said, quote, I'm wide open, which, weird way to phrase it. Probably could have just said my schedule is wide open, but I think we all understood what he was saying. Wants to go one-on-one with The Rock sometime presumably before WrestleMania, or at least before main event night 2 of WrestleMania. And then Seth says, you can't go one-on-one with anyone in the bloodline because they're going to interfere. And Seth basically says, I've got your back. Now, and then of course they have the little segment where Austin Theory just comes back into frame and rips The Rock's lines and gets beat up by Rhodes and Rollins, and then that's it. So that was the Grayson Waller effect. For me, the most anticipated part of the night, because I didn't know what to expect and I wasn't sure where this would go. But from the way everything's been worded, Cody Rhodes has said one-on-one with the Great One. So that makes it apparent that Cody Rhodes will face The Rock. That will be on the marquee for whatever, wherever, whenever. Who knows when that'll be. We'll figure that out. And it looks like Seth Rollins, by saying, I've got your back, will be maybe in his corner. What I don't want to see is something that has been reported since this fiasco of not only Rock taking Cody's spot, but then Rock giving that spot back, and then The Rock reportedly pitched a tag team match, himself and Roman Reigns against Rhodes and Rollins for WrestleMania. I don't like that at all. I don't want to see that. Now, Cody Rhodes versus The Rock, with Seth Rollins trying to make sure that the bloodline doesn't interfere, that's fine. The question I have is, when are you going to do it, right? Are they going to do it at a premium live event prior to WrestleMania? Are they going to do it on a Raw or SmackDown? I just can't see that. It's got to be at WrestleMania 40. If Cody Rhodes is going to take on Roman Reigns in the main event of night 2, you would think he would face The Rock night 1. Then that leads us to the initial problem we had with reports regarding a supposed tag team match with The Rock involved. That would more than likely be a main event match for night 1. Bayley and Io Sky has already been announced as a main event. So you would have to, whether it's a tag team match involving The Rock or him just taking on Cody in a singles match with everybody at ringside, you'd probably have to bump that match from the main event unless The Rock is seriously willing to not go on last for night 1 of WrestleMania 40. How that match plays out, obviously you have to have Cody win. It would be kind of cool to have Cody beat Rock night 1, beat Roman night 2, and have Cody go in potentially banged up. He just wrestled the night before. He just beat The Rock. What a feat that is. And then defeats Roman Reigns, despite the bloodline. That would be incredible. I don't think any of this was necessary to him finishing the story, but it has made it more intriguing. It has brought a ton of attention. And if this is what they're going to do, Cody versus Rock, night 1, WrestleMania, you'd have to think it'd be the main event. Maybe it won't be. Maybe they'll still put Bayley and Io on last. And then night 2 main event, Cody Roman. I can get behind that. What did you think about this segment? What do you think is going to happen? Will Cody actually go one-on-one with The Rock? I think he has to. He said the words one-on-one. He's not going to lie again, which I know he didn't intend to lie when he said I'm not going to face Roman at WrestleMania. That's not his fault. But if you do another rug pull where Cody has said one-on-one, but actually Mr. Dance and Prance, secondary world champion Rollins, has now gotten into this and it's a tag team match, and now Roman's involved too, and they've all got to wrestle twice now, except for The Rock. I just don't like that, and it doesn't make sense. But what did you think about this? What do you think is going to happen next? Realistically, I can only see night 1 WrestleMania, Cody versus Rock, potentially with Rollins at ringside, and then Cody versus Roman, night 2 WrestleMania, and he wins both matches. Be sure to let me know how you feel about this. What do you think is going to happen? I would love to hear from you in the comments. That's all I've got. I'll see y'all later.